What's up, guys? Four-wheeler doctor back again. Today we're working on a little 170 Rzr. This is about a 18 or 19 model. It's got some clutch issues. You can just smell the clutch burning on it. It just don't seem like it's pulling like it should. So I bought a replacement clutch for it, belt, and we're going to end up fixing that. The chain, little tensioner is broke on it. I'm going to stick that on there too, which it isn't too bad. But mainly just working on the clutch on this thing for right now. Start off with, I'm going to pull the seats out. I don't think you really have to, but it makes it a whole lot easier to get that rear access panel off. If you do pull these seats out, they're 12 millimeter bolts. You got a bolt under the bottom here in the front on both sides, and then a bolt under here in the back. These bolts are welded to the seat frame, so you just have to remove the. Actually, I say it's a bolt. They're actually nuts. You just have to remove the nuts, and the seats will lift up out of there. So I'm gonna do that real quick. I'll cut the camera back on and show you what to remove on this access panel, so we can get back in there to the brakes. Get back in there to the clutch, not brakes. Alright, guys, got these seats out. Forgot on this passenger side over here, you only have to remove these two front ones. It has some little loops that it slides into the back there that the seat will come right out. Now we need to remove all these bolts. These are 10 millimeter headed bolts on this back access plate. We got 4 across the top. There's a push pin under here you need to pull out, and then there appear to be two bolts across the bottom here that you got to get out. Pull those out, and that whole panel should come off and give you pretty good access to the clutch. So let me get that off, and I'll cut the camera back on in a sec. Alright, guys, there also one bolt on this on the driver's side, and one push pin on the passenger side that you got to pull out. I got all that loose. I'm going to pull this cover off. I'm just going to unclip these wires from the back side because they're got some crud in them, and they're not really wanting to come apart out here as you would do it ideally. So I'm going to pull these things out like that. And this one does something different, I think. Both of these just have these little nuts on them, or the little bolts on them that are just knurled. So now slide this thing back behind the seatbelt holder there, seatbelt reel, and then your cover comes off. And now you can gain access to your clutch housing, at least here. And looks like we only got access to about half of it, so we're gonna have to go from the bottom end to get the rest of the bolts out. And I'm not 100% sure how this thing's gonna come out of here, because it's pretty darn close to the brackets and everything here. So hopefully we won't have to take any other crazy stuff out. But I'm gonna get the air hose and blow all this off. Probably go ahead and disconnect these intake and exhaust hoses for the belt cover, and we'll start taking these 10 millimeter bolts out. Looks like there's 4 across the top here. Probably got 1 on each side, and then probably 4 across the bottom as well. So I'll get those loosened up, and we'll see what this cover is going to do if we have to take anything else off. Alright, guys, I got the cover there removed. Just a few 10 millimeter bolts and some push pins. And then this is what you got now. This brace right here is what needs to come out. There's 2 14 millimeter bolts, fairly good sized bolts that hold that thing in. And once you get those pulled out, you can just slide this cover forward. I'm hoping this thing's gonna clear over here by the gas tank, because there's still only an inch or so there at the gas tank, and Lord, I hope I don't have to take that gas tank out. But anyway, I've got all the bolts out of the clutch cover, and now see if I can get this thing to break loose. It's got I believe it's got somewhat of a gasket on here. Start to slide off like that. Yeah, got a gasket here. I'm gonna probably get a razor blade. The gasket's sticking on the cover in some spots and not in others. I'm gonna grab a razor blade and go around that thing and pry that gasket back. So try to keep from tearing the gasket. Pulls right off like that. Now this is the moment of truth. Is it going to clear the gas tank? And I'm telling y'all, it sure don't look like it is. I'm going to have to pull the dang gas tank out of this thing. Goodness gracious. So, yeah, it just will not clear right here. I'll tell you, this is what happens when people design something and never plan on working on it again. Which, I don't know why they wouldn't plan on taking the belt off of this thing, but that's what they're planning, I reckon. This gas tank has got two straps on it. They look like they're 12mm bolts. You get the straps loose, it looks like it would pick up. Just lift straight up. Honestly, I don't need but probably another inch or inch and a half to get past that cover, or get the cover past it, and it'll come out of there. So let me get them 12mm off, and then we'll see if we can slide it out. Alright guys, I got the bolts out of the straps on this thing. Two 12mm come through this hole in the front. 112 comes up from the bottom, 112 goes from the top. We'll go ahead and pull these fuel lines off. This is a fuel injected model. On this quick disconnect, all you do is push the sides of it in and slide it back. It comes right off of the fuel line just like that. And then this other plug lifts up, pulls out. That's the fuel pump. There's still one more wire attached here. Not real sure where it goes. I'm sure it'll show up as soon as we start pulling this thing out. So I'm thinking that it looks like it just lifts right up. Also, there's a vent line here. This thing has so much mud on it, or so much dirt on it, I couldn't even see it. So slide that clamp back, and then wiggle that vent line off. Try to wiggle the vent line off. Goodness gracious, it didn't want to come off there. Let me grab a screwdriver and get that pried off. Alright, I got the vent line loose. It's a barb fitting on there. That thing was pretty tight. There's also a green connector here. This is for the fuel gauge. Go ahead and unplug it so it'll be out of the way. There again, there's so much dirt on here, it makes it tough to get unplugged. Goodness gracious. Probably should have, as on most of these bikes, I probably should have pressure washed the dang thing while I got it in here, but usually don't find that out until it's too late. This connector is a tough one. Alright, there we go. And I think the way this thing's going to come out is you can rotate it up, or I'm hoping that's the way it's going to come out. Rotate it up enough to get it out of here. Still ain't coming out. Goodness gracious. The other problem we have here is hitting this dang seatbelt coil. So let me take that off. I believe it's a 17mm, so I already got one of them laying around here. Let me pull that off and have that out of the way. It looks like it should pick straight up. So alright guys, cross your fingers that this is going to work. I got the seatbelt coil out of the way, and ideally this thing would lift right up out of here in a perfect world. As you know, our world's far from perfect. So now the straps are holding. Probably should have took them out first. I don't really even know why I didn't. Let's bend these straps to get them out. Hopefully yours isn't going to have globs of dirt that you got to contend with as well. Those straps out. Come on. Big money. No whammies. Voila. All of that just to get this dang cover off. Here, look how easy this thing will slide off once you get all this crap out of the way. See there? Just like that. Just as simple as that. So, what we got here, let's move the camera around, make sure you can see what we're working with. I'm not real sure of exactly what this clutch setup's called. Granted, it is a CVT, but it's also got another clutch. So this is the primary, this is the secondary. This secondary clutch has a centrifugal clutch in here with pads, and they wear out a lot of times. The guy said he could smell stuff. More than likely that's the smell he's getting out of that clutch. So we're gonna pull both of these off, and I think that's a maybe a 19 millimeter. Incorrect. That is a 17 millimeter. 17 millimeter. I'm gonna put an impact on it. It's gonna be the easiest way to get those off. So whip them off there with the impact, and then we'll get ready to slide the new ones back on. Alright guys, we're back. It's the next day. I went ahead and loosened these 17 millimeter bolts or nuts up on both of these clutches. Just hit them with the impact. They pulled right off. This primary, or the one off the crankcase, it actually has, our crankshaft, it actually has a washer. So hang on to that washer, slide your belt off, then pull it off your secondary clutch there. And this secondary clutch should just slide right off here like that. And that's actually what we're going to be replacing. The clutches that are in question are in here. These are worn pretty good. You can see the blue in the clutch. You can tell it got hot. It's not the cleanest in the world either, so that probably didn't help matters out. The belt actually doesn't look too bad. Just comparing it to the new belt I got, it's about the same size, so it's really not too terribly bad. And also, let me say that if I just happen to knock this camera over and run off screaming, I've run into a couple snakes here in my shop in the last week or so. And as y'all can see from the videos, my shop isn't that big, but it's definitely not big enough for me and a snake. So yeah, everything will be okay. I'll just cut the camera back off after I get through screaming and my heart rate goes back down. But just slide that new clutch back on there. I just purchased that off of, I actually got that off of eBay, just a brand new clutch with pretty much what you need. The clutch is not worn on the used one, or the old one. The actual sheaves are still good in it. They're smooth, don't have any grooves in them. I think most of the problem is from that that actual clutch bell. So go ahead and install the belt. This is a new belt I purchased. This thing goes, the arrows point toward the crankshaft. So slide the belt on there. It's probably going to be a little tight because the other one was fairly tight to come off. So what you have to do a lot of times is stick a screwdriver in those sheaves of that clutch and open those up a little bit to allow that belt to stretch out some. Just like that. That's on there. And put your primary clutch back on. Make sure your splines of that primary clutch sheave line up. Put your washer and your nut back on there. Tighten these things down. I'm not real sure what the torque spec is, but let me grab my torque wrench and I'll look it up real quick and let you know, just so you'll know as you're putting it back together. So give me a sec. Set the camera back on in just a second. Alright, so the drive clutch here is 29 foot-pounds and the driven clutch is 40. So torque those down. That's not real tight. You usually can hold them with your hand and keep them from spinning to get them down that tight. So torque that down, and then it's just a matter of putting it back together. Say I apologize for kind of running around on everything on this, because I didn't realize I was going to have to take the gas tank off, but it don't look like there's a way around it unless you pull the motor out, and that's definitely a no-no. So that's pretty much all there is to it. Throw it back together, and you should have good pulling power again. Got a few other things to work on this thing. Got a brake sticking on the right front, and put an air filter in it. So that's pretty much all I'm gonna do to this one as far as the heavy work. So this is probably the only video I'll do on it. So hit the like button, subscribe, check out my other videos. Hope y'all like this one, and I hope I helped you out. All right, have a good night.